Buckingham Old Gaol is the English home of Flora Thompson. Since 2007, the museum has had a room dedicated to displaying artefacts relating to her life and works. We have her original typewriter and many of her books from her own library. We also have copies of the books she wrote, the books written about her, and copies of plays, playbills and theatre programmes. We are also lucky to have some significant artefacts donated to the museum by the BBC following their production of Lark Rise to Candleford as a TV drama. The museum is entirely run by volunteers. I hope you will take the opportunity to visit us during 2026 to learn about Flora's life. We will be expanding our exhibition during the summer to celebrate the 150th anniversary of her birth. The rest of Flora's belongings now reside in the Harry Ransom Humanities Research Centre at the University of Texas in Austin. Flora Thompson is best remembered for her books Lark Rise, Over to Candleford and Candleford Green, which borrow much from her childhood in the Oxfordshire village of Juniper Hill and her teenage years working in the post office at Fringford. In the book she calls herself Laura, Juniper Hill becomes Lark Rise, Fringford became Candleford Green, and the fictitious town of Candleford is mainly Buckingham. Her evocative descriptions of country life in the late Victorian era are remarkable considering they were not written until 40 years later. They are an important semi-autobiographical social commentary about the times and places of a bygone era. Thompson is Flora's married name. She was born Flora Jane Timms on the 5th of December 1876 in Juniper Hill. Her mother, Emma, was a nursemaid and her father a stonemason. Her father was born in Buckingham and her grandparents Thomas and Martha Timms lived on Gorcott Road. She went to school in Cottisford and at the age of 14 started work in Fringford Post Office with a family friend, Mrs. Kezia Whitton, who became Dorcas Lane in the books. Her prospects were severely limited by her poor education in the village school, but she was an avid reader and was grateful for Kezia's library and training. She particularly enjoyed her time as a letter carrier, as this enabled her to explore the countryside and further cemented her close bond with nature, which she often wrote about in later life. To become a postmistress herself, she would have needed civil service qualifications, but she learnt enough in her first job to take other temporary posts when she decided she needed to spread her wings. She did not want to live all her life in close proximity to where she was born. Flora left Fringford in 1897, eventually arriving in Greyshot to work in Walter Chapman's post office the following year. Subsequently, she moved on to the post office in Yateley, Hampshire, and met John William Thompson, who worked as a post office clerk in Aldershot. John was from the Isle of Wight and had inherited a great love of the sea from his father, who was a naval officer. They married in 1903 in Twickenham Parish Church and moved to Winton, Bournemouth, where the first two children, Winifred and Henry, were born. Although a busy wife and mother, she continued with her education by borrowing books from the library and started her tentative writing career by submitting essays on such topics as Jane Austen. These were published in journals aimed at female readers. Tragedy struck in 1916 when her beloved brother Edwin, known as Edmund in the books, was killed in action. John felt that a change of scenery would help Flora and so took the job as sub-postmaster in Liphook, where her youngest son, Peter, was born in 1918. Following a correspondence course on writing techniques, Flora increased her submissions for publication, writing mainly about nature. Her first published book of poetry, titled Bog, Myrtle and Peat, was not well received, so she became quite despondent. However, she continued writing her nature articles, which gradually included characters from her childhood and became known as the Peveril Papers, her nickname for Weaver's Down. In 1927, without Flora knowing, John took another job as postmaster in Dartmouth. Flora was devastated when she found out. as she had enjoyed her time in Hampshire, making many literary friends. Joan became more supportive of her writing after he retired in 1935 and eventually built her a writing room in the garden of their home. Flora began collecting together memories of her childhood, and in 1938 she sent the manuscript of Lark Rise to Sir Humphrey Milford at Oxford University Press. As their UP did not publish fiction, Sir Milford categorised it as autobiographical. Once again, Flora's life was disrupted by war when they had to move out of Dartmouth to avoid the bombing of the shipyards. Tragedy struck again when her youngest son Peter went down with his ship in 1941. Despite her depressed mood, Over to Candleford and Candleford Green were eventually published and were well received by the critics. In 1944 they were published together as the trilogy Lark Rise to Candleford. In the introduction, Harold Massingham states, Flora Thompson possesses the attributes both of sympathetic presentation and literary power to such a degree of quality and beauty that her claims upon posterity can hardly be questioned. The trilogy enables us to appreciate for the first time what she has done both for literature and social history. She began work on a book called Heatherly about her life in Greyshot, but it was never published in her lifetime as she became ill with heart disease and died on the 21st of May 1947. She is buried in Longcross Cemetery in Devon. Her legacy is commemorated both on her original home, the church in Cottisford, and with a bust that can be viewed in Liphook Library. An insight into Flora's character can perhaps be understood from a quote about Laura from the book. The heroine of a modern novel would have seized such an opportunity to go out into the throng and learn a little at first hand about life. But this is a true story, and Laura was not the stuff of which heroines are made. A born looker-on, she preferred to watch from her window. This watching from the window may be why Flora wrote such good characterizations of people and descriptions of places in the books. I'm Joanne Thompson, a trustee of the charity Buckingham Jail Trust. This talk was produced from information in our archive written by the late Tony Webster and books about Flora written by Christine Bloxham, Gillian Lindsay and Martin Greenwood. We hope it will encourage you to join us for the 150th celebration of Flora's birth. Watch for details on our website and social media.